We're rolling.
Literally, it seems.
Great. Okay, great. So no more messing with it. It'll be on their side. Okay. All right. So in the, I will say that this process of suddenly discovering a layer to set up that we didn't realize by only discreetly testing various pieces of it has to be really representative of an IF meetup anyway. So you're welcome that you got to join that in the room live with us as we were figuring that out. So I'm not going to be my goal in getting together this large group of interesting and illustrious IF meetup folk are that we hear from you all and your different approaches to doing these meetups. What is this? Let me say it this way. I had an opportunity to add something to the schedule, and I felt like this component, which was such a rich vein for so many people participating in NarraScope, could be represented if we got some groups together. And so for those who weren't actually sort of the people I was talking to try to plan to do this, to introduce sort of everybody in the room to this concept, we had not much of a plan as NarraScope for what this would be, other than send Matt around to go to the meetups and talk to them and see if they would be interested. And over the course of doing that, I would say the bad ideas I had about what this should be fell aside. And what we're going to do here is have a conversation and get to know, help the audience here at NarraScope get to know some of these long-running meetups, many of which they're aware of. But this is a chance to not only hear some stories and put them in context, but I want to have you all asking each other questions about what you're doing. So we're going to start with something very simple. I just want each of you to just very briefly introduce yourself, your name, and the meetup you're involved with, and if you can remember, or just make it up, what the first game that you either discussed or played together when you joined an IF meetup. And so let's start with the people who are not in this room, and we'll get to these two last because they're fussing.
Your battery's dying.
Oh, it is. Yeah, great. Meanwhile, I'll do that. So I'm going to mute. And so what I'd like to do, why don't I start with Greg? I'll put you on the spot if you don't mind. So tell us who you are, your meetup, and if you can remember the first thing that you played.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So my name is Greg Frost. I'm a civil engineer. I live in the Seattle adjacent area, the greater Seattle, Tacoma, King County, Snohomish County, Pierce County area. We're a big tent meetup group. And so the first game that we played with our meetup when we sort of reconstituted it back in 2018 was Ryan Veter's game, Curse of the Garden Isle. Actually, let's see, Mike Spivey and Brian Rushton and I all kind of got the idea to reconstitute the Seattle IF meetup in about 2018 after we'd worked on the collaborative project for Ryan Veter, the Cragny Manor, Cranye Manor, however you want to pronounce it. We thought that was good fun. Let's keep this thing going. And so we had planned to get together at a bar down in Renton, I want to say. We brought a laptop with us, put it at one far end of the table, and played Ryan Veter's game on that with people squinting the other end, eating, trying not to get it on the laptop and that sort of thing. But it was all agreed to be good fun. And so we kept that going for a while through various points until we were forced online in 2020. And then we've been doing it online since then. But yeah, it all started back in Renton with a copy of Curse of the Garden Isle.
Now, I'd like you to pick somebody else there on the screen. And again, we'll leave these two for the last to be the next one.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. Let's see, Florencia, what would you tell us about the first game you played at the meetup?
Yeah. So I'm Florencia. Hi. Flo is also hi. And I'm part of the Oxford and London Interactive Fiction meetup, although it is mostly London at the moment. So I joined about a year after the meetup started. So it started around 2014. I went to my first meetup in 2015. And actually the first game that I played was a demo of my game Dialogue, a Writer's Story, which wasn't planned, but it was one of these drop-in sessions where people could kind of try out their games or games that were suggested in small groups of people. And I thought, maybe we could try my game, but I didn't bring a laptop. I didn't know what the meetup was actually like. And Emily Short, who's the one who had been running it, happened to have downloaded a demo for my game, which really made me happy. And so that was the first game I played. I was kind of running people through my demo in the first meetup I went to. I'm going to pass to Destina, the other half of the Oxford in London.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hi, I'm Destina. I'm a game designer. And yeah, like I'm also part of the Oxford London Interactive Fiction group. And I was going to tell the same story that Flo did, and now I don't have anything else. So I joined, I guess, like a bit later, partially because I never really associated with interactive fiction. Like, it was kind of like I always saw myself as an outsider. And well, I don't remember the kind of first game that was played while we were there. What I do remember is just kind of going along and chatting with Emily, who was running at the time, and um, just kind of steadily being kind of brought in a way where I thought, oh, okay, this thing that I think of as being somebody else's thing, uh, I'm welcome here, and that was a pretty cool feeling. Um, Michael, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks. So we'll move across the pond, right, as they say. And I'm in the Boston group, which is known as the People's Republic of Interactive Fiction. Which, for those who are not familiar with Cambridge, which is where the group started, and Andrew can talk more about anything that I leave out a little bit later. But because of its for a long time, going way back, Cambridge has been known as the People's Republic of Cambridge because of sort of lefty views. So it makes perfect sense. But in case anybody was wondering what the hell that meant, so I actually only joined a couple of years ago. I'm an astrophysicist, and I played games. I grew up with Infocom. Maybe a little young for it, but then had a little bit of a dark age. But for a long time, I'd been working on educational software. I kind of specialized in doing introductory teaching and using all kinds of tech and software with it in the classroom and digital and online and that. And when the pandemic hit, I went looking to see if interactive fiction and where it was. I'd kind of gone in a dark age after going into point and click and not doing much with gaming for kind of a while, and I found all these great things. I was like, boy, this is a lot better than AGT was way back in the day. And then I found NarraScope a couple of years ago, and that was great. And then I found the Pref online, and you just go and sign up and join. So my first meeting was just a couple of years ago, in the beginning of January of 2022. It's funny. It's very typical for our group. We'll probably talk about the differences between the groups a little later. But very typical for Boston. There wasn't a playthrough, and there were only been two in the time I've been with the group where we've really played through a game actually in a meetup. But we did have a big discussion. Two things very relevant. We did have a big discussion about Infocom. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was a big discussion about Infocom in that particular meeting. And then the other thing we talked about for quite a while was challenges for one of our members was very interested in what you can do for blind people or visually impaired people doing interactive fiction. And we talked about different kinds of screen reader softwares and limitations and things like that. So very kind of typical topic for us. So yeah. Let's see who hasn't gone. Dan, I think you've gone.
Yeah. I founded the San Francisco Bay Area Interactive Fiction Meetup in 2010. And significantly, I did that because that's around the same time that I started Choice of Games, the publishing house for interactive novels. And it took us quite a while to settle on playing a game at all. Initially, I had sort of thought that we would be sort of a writers group. And then maybe I thought that we would be something more like a book club, where we would say, all right, we're going to discuss game X at this next meetup. But of course, you will have played it beforehand. We won't play it on the spot, not least because we were meeting in sort of a cafe environment where it wouldn't be very convenient to play a game together. It took quite a while, even for the idea to even occur to me that, hey, maybe we should play a game here. It wasn't until, so we started in May, and it wasn't until April of the following year that we even tried playing a game. And I was like, oh, that worked pretty well. And there followed a few different experiments on how we might do that. I think we were the first ever to attempt a hybrid online, offline playthrough through ClubFloyd back in 2011, which was pretty cool. But eventually it fully dawned on me, oh, okay, so what we need is a big screen and a laptop plugged into that screen, and we can play that way. Then we were playing in person like that for quite some time. I think the first game that we played in that setting was Photopia. I was looking for a nice starter game with show off what the medium can do. I think Angelique hasn't gone.
Hi, I'm a fairly new member of the Seattle Tacoma group, but I live in Vancouver, Canada. It was just during the pandemic. I've been playing interactive fiction for a while, and I knew there was a Vancouver group, but it hadn't been active for a long time. And then during the pandemic, when I suddenly had all this time on my hands, I thought it'd be nice to talk to other people. And so I found Greg and the Seattle Tacoma Interactive Fiction Group through the Interactive Fiction Forum. And then I got in touch and started just coming regularly to our meetups once a month. That's it. There's no interesting backstory.
Do you remember what the first game was when you joined?
Yeah, kind of. I think it was that science fair game by Hannah Nondrachek. I think that was the first one.
So I think we have now. Have we talked to everybody who are not in Philly? We have, yeah. So
Is it us?
yeah,
It's us.
how about which you?
You go first. And Oh, okay.
Perfect.
So I'm here because of ClubFloyd, which is a meetup that was started. It's a weekly meetup on the interactive fiction multi-user dungeon, which nobody says that. I think I've never said that. ifMUD. And it started in September of 2007. It's pretty much always been on Sundays. The time shifts around, but it's a global meetup. So we have people across multiple time zones. We try to have the time. We're not great for Oceania right now, but we have some regulars that come in from Europe. And the first game we played on the first week of September 2007 was Nate Call's Nevermore. But we updated our transcripts. We're completely up to date on the website now, and we have 888 transcripts up at this point.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I've been seeing those on IFTV, and I mean, if you go and look at interesting things, it's like it's always there. It's like, have they done the whole catalog? So
Almost.
So rolling just a teeny bit this way.
Come on in.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone's visible.
So I'm here. I'm one of the people from the People's Republic group that Mike is from, and I was one of the founding members of that. And that originated in 2009. You saw me checking my tablet to quickly confirm all the dates. That was Leia Albo's Interactive Fiction Writing Month in 2009, which was a joint project. It was, modeled on NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo.
And just like everybody worked on a game in September of 2009. And we did, and we got, because there were many of us living in Boston at the time, a bunch of us got together. That included me and Jason McIntosh, Doug Orlins, Mike Hilborn, Nick Montfort, who was teaching IF at MIT, and a couple other people. And we actually started out, because it was a writing month, we started out as a writing group. And people would come in and play, like we would play a little snippet of whatever they were working on, and then we would talk about it. And it was a bit of a combination, like writing honesty group, like sit down and do some work, and critique club. But we kept going after the initial few meetups. We started out meeting at cafes, but because Nick had space at MIT, and it was his space at MIT is full of like old computers and old floppy disks of adventure games, which was study material at the time. We were able to play old games, like 1980s games on original hardware, like his Commodore 64 poetry experiments, and then whatever else people wanted to talk about. And we kept that up as a monthly meetup from 2010 up until the pandemic disrupted everything, at which point we switched to online. And since then, the Boston Meetup group has been Boston in terminology, but it's actually been people from all over the world just dropping in. And we're thinking about how to navigate that transition more consciously now.
And that'll be an interesting thing for us to talk about. In fact, well, I wanted to cut in with something. So a couple of years ago, I'm in New York City, but I had seen that you could go online and join the Boston group. And so I've been attending there for a while now, thanks to there being an online option. And so it feels like I kind of zip over there. And I want us to talk briefly in a second about the changes that have come with so many people being used to going online and behaving online, and how that has changed things. But I wanted to first talk about, do a very brief round of those who have met in person as the main driver in the past. And each of you have talked about different configurations. But what is distinctive for your group when they meet in person versus hybrid or online? Just a sort of a brief round here. And I thought I'd start briefly with Dan, because he'd already sort of started down this path a bit with telling the sort of journey of finding the configuration that works. What does your group experience differently when those that went to MAID and were sitting there in the room with you versus joining online? And what's distinctive about that?
Sure. Matt mentioned MAID. That's the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment in Oakland, California, which is where we now regularly meet. It's a pretty cool venue. They have a lot of old-timey game hardware that you can play games on. We don't normally play our games on them, but I think it's a really fun setting to meet. So that's fun in its own right. But I'd say the big difference is, at least for my experience, when you're on a Zoom, there's something kind of inherent to, like, I'm the only one speaking in this room right now. And it's possible through chat sort of to have little side conversations, but it's not very easy to do. And as a result, I think it's harder to make sort of personal human connections. Whereas when people will come in person, I will have like a little side conversation before and after, maybe we'll exchange a business card, talk a little bit more individually about what people are doing. Whereas in Zoom or Discord, it's like, okay, there's one thing on the screen right now, and this is what we are doing here. People maybe will pipe up in chat, but will not normally sort of speak up as part of doing that. There'll be a lot of, calling on people, taking turns, which is good and bad. But of course, it allows us to reach people who wouldn't otherwise be able to attend the meetup in person, which is fantastic. But and that's part of why we're operating as hybrid. We have a Zoom running every time, but I'm always showing up in person at the MAID. Sometimes I'm the only person at the MAID, but sometimes there's a handful of people there, and we chat together, and we're also playing together with people on Zoom. That's me. I'm a little hazy on who is still sort of primarily focused on in person. All right, Destina, go for it.
Actually, I was going to interject before you start.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that the Boston group did when we were meeting in person was invariably after a meeting, we would go out to dinner at the Cambridge Brewing Company, the sadly lamented Cambridge Brewing Company, which went under last year during the for pandemic reasons. But it was definitely a two-part meeting, and the second part was like being in a big noisy room with a giant tower of beer, which is harder on Zoom because it's bad for the hardware. But continue, please.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because that was what I thought was the difference. Because we went when the CBC closed. We did go for one last in-person meeting in Boston, which everybody really liked. My experience with the Boston group is much more online. Everybody really liked it, and we're hoping to do some more things. It's a good chunk of the membership, let's say, is regional, but many of us are not in the city, myself included. But people came up from Philadelphia, New York. It was really fun. So we're hoping to do some regional kinds of things, and that was said of food would be nice. I apologize for jumping in on Zarf.
No, I mean, honestly, that was going to be one of the things I said, is that the Oxford London meetup is usually basically a two-part thing where, like, when we're doing in person, because now we're doing kind of, when we do playthroughs, we tend to do online because just more people can come and it's kind of convenient. We can put it on a screen. But when we get speakers in, when we do workshops, when we do other sorts of stuff, we try to get a venue. And when we can get a venue, we do something in person. But invariably afterwards, like the second part of the meetup is like go to the local pub, and everybody just kind of sits around a table or sits around multiple tables. We just take over a local pub, and that's where a lot of great conversations happen, and people kind of treat each other like people. And even if it was a meetup where we had like a primary speaker or something, we get to break out of that effect that Dan was talking about, where you've got like one person speaking to everybody, and you can kind of just have a bit more of that. So yeah, there's that. And I think the kinds of stuff we can do in person I find to be different than the stuff we can do online. Like, we went largely online because of the pandemic. Before that, it was almost entirely in person. And then pandemic, we shifted to completely online. We slowed down while we figured out like how we were going to do that and what kind of pace we wanted. And then we got to a juncture where we were like, does anybody even want in person anymore? So we did like one in-person thing, and we just had multiple people who were like, thank you so much for organizing this in person. Like, we know fewer people can make it and it's not as convenient, but it just means so much to like see people and like be in the same room and chat with them, especially kind of post-pandemic. So the kinds of stuff we can do are different as well. Yeah, so that's my experience.
So Greg and Angelique, are there? Have you all met in person? I've only joined you in remote opportunities.
I've never met any of these people in person.
Yeah, we have
Who are
been
these
fully
people?
online since
I
2020.
think we've talked about doing something post-pandemic and having me drive down to the States. It's just gotten a little harder to do that now.
Yeah, it's a lot to ask for a meetup to, go 3 hours and across the border just to get to a thing. It was, when I was traveling down to Tacoma once every couple of months, that was okay, and that was it worked fine. It was a mostly Tacoma centric group because that's where we had a venue with some space that Mike was able to get us a room with a projector and a computer at the university. That was good. Once the pandemic hit and we were forced to move online, I will say, as much as I do miss the ability to be in a room with people and, talk about stuff sort of informally and have that face-to-face interaction, I will say that I do enjoy the things that being fully online has allowed us to do that would not have been possible otherwise. Having participants from other countries, other time zones, people who would not be able to get down to the specific venue once every month or every couple of months. It's made it a little easier for us to go to a monthly rather than a bi-monthly pace, so we can get more gaming in per unit of effort. It's also allowed us to do some crazy things that we wouldn't have thought about, like having people from totally different states present their game for a meetup. And so that's been really exciting, where we can just kind of informally have a lot more experiences that we just could not have done in person. I'm sure that we could do those with some sort of a hybrid setup. I will admit that I'm a technological dunce and I have absolutely no idea how to make that happen, but it's something that we've thought about as a possibility for the future.
Yeah, it's definitely benefited me. And I think most of our regulars are not even from the Seattle-Tacoma region now.
Yeah, it's true. We have a lot of folks who are regulars who, live in other areas.
I organized the Seattle meetup for the years that I lived in Seattle, and it was pretty slim. So I didn't know that you all were doing stuff online. I could come back.
Join us.
Come back.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. You can also hit the Discord link.
Do please.
It's a fun one. So when I said that I was sort of going around to the various meetups to try to introduce them to this idea, I also was just joining what I didn't know existed until I met some friends online that I had interacted with in a particular meetup multiple times, and they're like, "There's actually IF Meetup tourism, so you just go to all of them. You just be a member of all of them." And so, like, Josh Grams is one who is very active in all of them, and I was convinced that that he only went to the Boston one, but he's like, no, you check out this one, you check out this one. And so I started following around his recommendations, and it just was fantastic to see the variety of people playing and the different experiences. It was really enjoyable. But so now let's talk a little bit about ClubFloyd, because that was never in person, except we did hear of the reference to the moment of a hybrid experience of it.
We did.
So, and you started this well before it was that common to make that the platform.
Yeah, it just so happened that the ifMUD has a bot on it, which, heck, I don't know, Andrew, did you code that thing?
I think it was probably Inky.
It was, okay, Dan Shivitz must have coded it, and it plays IF parser games. And then we started using it weekly. And then over time, we were like, well, could it do TADS and could it do AGT? And so we unfortunately have not cracked the acorn on trying to do any kind of like twine, but occasionally, Dan is very kind occasionally and converts choice script games so that they will run on the bot. And so that's allowed us to play a big diversity of games. And I think the bot has improved because of our repeated and heavy use of it. So, yeah.
So I wanted to explore one point of that. So the experience of ClubFloyd is a kind of two-channel experience where you have, what's happening in the game being very present for everybody who is engaging with it. And then you have all the chatter and all of the, the conversation that leads to the choices and that kind of thing. So I would love to hear from a couple of you about mechanisms you found have worked for how to play together, or at least, even if you're just discussing it, look at something together and navigate it. So let's see.
Well, if I can hop on the thing that you just said. So I think that's one of the things that's unique to ClubFloyd is that because it's entirely text-based, and these transcripts that you can go, if you just Google ClubFloyd, all one word, if it's separate words, you'll get some club in Miami. I don't recommend it. But ClubFloyd, one word, and you'll come to my personal website, but there's a page on it where all the transcripts are. So you can take a look, and it as Matt was just saying, you've got the text on one side, and then in line, so in the time, like in the same spot in the game, you can see the conversation that's happening, and that is memorialized forever. And that's proven to be useful to like grad students researching how people cooperatively play a game or things like that. And so, and I think it's really useful to authors because they're like, when they get a transcript, they see somebody flail at a wall and they don't know why they're flailing. In our transcripts, you can be like, well, what the hell? Why isn't that a synonym for this? And, you can hear us talking through why we're having trouble with a puzzle. And so some authors hate reading our transcripts of their games and some love it. And we also do beta test work. So if you are interested in having something beta tested, and we can either not post your transcript at all or delay the posting of the transcript, which we delay all the posting of all the transcripts, but eventually we can post it. Hit me up because we do that too. It's a service we provide. Yeah.
And so I actually want to throw this out to the Seattle Tacoma group because I've noticed one of the, at least in the last several meetups that I've joined, instead of everybody coming on screen visually and being, kind of in Zoom mode, there's often just like the text being posted and somebody performing it, or it's a group of voices working through it, which I find very interesting. I don't know if that's just happened to be the sessions I saw. I'm curious if that's deliberate and if, and how that became the comfortable mode of playing.
Well, I guess I could speak on that. When we started, we were on Zoom and everyone had their camera. But somehow when we got to Discord, I got lazy and stopped putting my camera on. That might have been what started it. And it just cut down on resource sharing if we're sharing our screen with the game going at the same time. I don't know, it just happened, I think.
Yeah, I'm running a potato for mine, so I usually will start with my screen on, and then if I'm presenting, I'll turn it off to save resources. I can run Firewatch and I can run Portal, and that's about the max of what my computer can do. So I try and keep it from getting too overloaded.
So how about the London Oxford group? What are some of the ways, like you talked about, that you have multiple types of formats that recur. You will have guests, you will do playthroughs, you will do discussions. What are some of these formats that have arisen, and how do they work?
Yeah, I'll start speaking and Destina can jump in. But so part of it comes down to part of what people find fun just really varies based on the person. So we do kind of playthroughs usually for IF Comp and Spring Thing, and nowadays we do that online, but we used to do it in person. And we have had authors come in as well, and that's great. But we have, for example, workshops. There's a lot of tools that if you can take your laptop to usually a university we partner with. You take your laptop in person, someone delivers a workshop, and then is there to answer questions afterwards. That's just been really useful for learning different sorts of tools or tool integration. But we also have talks which, again, are kind of in person if the person can make it, or online if we want someone, we've had people from the States and so on before. And it's just really nice to have a variety of these things. We've polled our members before, and different people want different things. So in a lot of ways, we choose what we like and we can make happen, and then kind of people come to it.
So Dan, with the Bay Area meetup, one of the things you'd mentioned earlier in this discussion are the ways that you have found to have people on site and online playing together, despite some at least minor trickiness as far as like hearing each other and communicating stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit about what led you to some of the modes of choosing what to do going forward in your sessions?
Yeah, as regards the format of the hybrid meetup, mostly that was, after vaccines were widely available and we were trying to return to in person, but we had been meeting online frequently. I would put out an invite on meetup.com, and I would say, "Can you come in person?" And most folks said no. So I said, okay, well, if we're going to do this, I would like to be in person with who is able to be there. We're going to have to do it hybrid. And I was mentioning in the chat, but I'll just reiterate for the historical record that our hybrid meetup is not high tech. We meet in a location that has a large screen TV. I plug my laptop into it, so I'm sharing my entire screen. I'm running Zoom on it, and I crank my laptop sound as high as it'll go. And my microphone sensitivity is to its maximum, and then people shout at my laptop to be heard for folks online. And then as for sort of the activity that we're doing during the event, what I'm trying to pre-play a few plausible games that we might play for any given meetup. So if it's, it's Spring Thing time. Okay, well, I'm going to try a few Spring Thing games such that I've got a menu of options. And then we will discuss a few of those options at the start of the meetup, pick a game or two, play one of them. And what I'm looking for in those games, I'm especially looking for ones that would make a lot of sense turn-based. That's often choice-based, though not necessarily. But also, I'm looking for games that are not too long, not too complicated. But sometimes I am looking for sort of parser puzzlers where folks can just kind of shout out. One disadvantage of that is that there's always a range of puzzle solving familiarity in the group. And as a result, it can be the case that it's like 2 or 3 people are driving the puzzle solving experience, which it feels like a bummer to me. Like it doesn't feel like we're engaging as a whole meetup together. Whereas if we're doing it choice-based, I can just call on everybody in turn. Everybody gets a turn operating the choices, and away we go. But yeah, it works pretty well for us for the size that we are. As Travis was mentioning in chat, we're going to get like 2, maybe 3 people in person, and then half a dozen people on a Zoom playing together. So yeah, all 2 or 3 of those people can huddle around my laptop, and that's fine. Just we did a 15th anniversary meetup a couple months ago, and for that one we got more people in person. But even there, I just did the same thing, and people just sort of shouted to be heard at the laptop, and I think that worked.
Can I tag on to that? Yeah. It's interesting because I've been hearing sort of the theme of, we get together, we play Spring Thing, we get together and we play IFComp, and that's great. Remember to vote in IFComp, remember to vote in Spring Thing, vote early and often. But one thing that was different that Dan just said from ClubFloyd, somebody was asking me this at lunch about like, how do you determine who drives the game, right? Is it a free for all or is it one person? And so ClubFloyd's kind of devised rules of like, if the game isn't on some sort of a timer, like you're not on a Hunger Demon or something like that, anybody can type in anything except leaving the room. Because you don't want to be in the middle of solving a puzzle and then you're typing in something and somebody goes south and you're like, hey, I wasn't done here, So, but often if something is on a timer, or honestly, if we're just kind of tired, which is increasingly more the case, we do have one person drive. And in our group, for those of you who know David Welburn, who's prolific in his walkthroughs that he posts on Patreon and such, David's often our big puzzle solver, and we just kind of watch him sometimes. And then when he hits a wall, which is rare, but when he does, what about this? We help. And what I like about that, Dan, I get the whole, it's not everybody. If it weren't for David, I probably wouldn't have experienced hundreds of different IF games because they just weren't my cup of tea. And so what I like is sometimes we play something that isn't puzzle heavy, and a lot of the time we do, and both are fine, and I get to experience games that I probably wouldn't play alone. So it's much like a book club in that respect, even though we're all playing together.
So you're sort of an organism together instead of a group of people having sort of equal say.
But it depends on the game.
Right. Yeah.
Depends on the game, but that's the thing. I think that's what's kept me with it since, like, when you say we meet every week, and I mean, there's weeks we skip, but like every week since 2007 is a ton of my life. But I'm grateful for it because it's kept me in touch with the IF on a more regular basis and let me see things I otherwise wouldn't.
So if I could, Matt, if you don't mind, if I could jump in, I had a thought triggered by both of those comments, which is even though we haven't done during my time with it, Andrew can speak maybe to previously, we haven't done that many playthroughs. We've done playthroughs of people's games that people have written, and sometimes people have demonstrated things. We've also had people demonstrate when they've written analysis of games, software that analyzes sort of stats and things and displays them. Usually we have the problem, who's going to drive, and usually the person who wrote it is doing the driving, and then we're all shouting at them. And so it's interesting to hear these solutions. But the thing that really struck me was what Dan said about people having a variety of experience, and that's something that, as someone less familiar, particularly less familiar with some of the, until a few years ago when I started paying attention to this, less familiar with some of the big names and some of the big games from more recent times in IF. It's important to me that the meetings are, now that I'm, especially now that I'm running them, that we try to make this comfortable for somebody who's coming in, who's either come out of the dark ages like me, or somebody who's a student or something, and they don't know as much about everything. Because I've been to a few, I have been to a few meetings where people are talking and they're throwing out all these names and all these games that I don't know. One of the things that we've experimented with a little bit is that if there's something where is to sort of preload a little bit, and so we have a thread sometimes. They'll say, okay, we'll take half the meeting time and we're gonna talk about this concept or this, idea. Originally, it was sort of like, well, what if you have an article, like tell people what the article is so they do it. What Dan was saying before, play the game, or whoever it was, about play the game ahead of time. So we've started playing with that a little bit. On the other hand, most of the half the people in the group like to have something like we just had happen here, where people take the conversation all different ways. But that's something to really balance, I think, to try to make it comfortable for everybody who might not have the same experience, so that there's something there, so that it's more accessible. And I know for me, it was just sort of, if I knew to look at something ahead of time, then I'd be able to speak to it. Whereas otherwise I was sitting in the meeting going, oh, I wish I'd thought about that. I wish I knew about that. I didn't come across that before.
So there's one round of things I've been wanting to do with this group. And we're going to do something else before we do this. But I want to tell you what it is, because I want you to think about it just a little bit. Not enough to get too seated in your formation of your question. I want each of you to think of a question that you've had for one of the other meetup groups about how they do something, or just something that has occurred to you in the way that you and your group have been tackling like a type of work. So you all are going to ask the questions next round, but I wanted to slip in here to ask Andrew to talk, just at least mention the bot on the Discord server for NarraScope.
Right. So I came up with this idea just a couple of weeks ago and started hammering it out very quickly. Jack mentioned the bot that plays IF games on ifMUD. We have more people on Discord now. Discord is more of a growing community, and you're on Discord right now. So I tried to replicate that as a IF playing bot, which is currently available on the Zarfbot 9000 channel. I did not choose that name.
Every time you say it, I nearly spat water out.
Awesome.
Yep.
Zarfbot 9000. And that was Justin. So it is currently limited to inform games for extremely annoying technical reasons. I hope to expand it in the future, but it is available, and I'm hoping to organize some kind of club-like activity for playing some games, just to exercise it, get some use out of it. Plans to come. We'll see.
So I don't know its current status right at this moment, because every once in a while a bunch of people jump in and discover that, hey, we can all hit stuff at pretty much the same time and see what hits.
Also, if it crashes, I'm not going to be able to fix it until I get home from Philadelphia. So don't crash it, please. But give it a shot and see what happens.
So who has a question for another group or person here? Okay, Dan? Start your hand first.
Yeah, I'm just curious how people pull in new members. How do you grow? How do you reach out? I've been posting on meetup.com the whole time, and on the InFiction forum when I remember to do so. I've mostly stopped posting to social media because I don't feel like I was getting people that way, and I wonder how other meetups go about this.
We used to post on social media, and we used to we've just kind of gotten, we've gotten tired, B, because of various reasons. I've dropped off of social media precipitously in the last 10 years or so. But I think the two things that helped us when we did have a lot of people, it's now a more smaller and intimate group. Anybody's free to join. And we do have it in sort of a locked off part of the mud right now, because we were having people tamper with our games in between sessions. And some of the games we play, we've played Granny Manor. It took us 5 months, but we got through it. And so we finally locked the bot in a room so that people couldn't come in and mess with our game in between Sundays. But I think what helped too was inviting authors. I would say, hey, we're going to play your game next week. If you'd like to come and watch. You can't offer spoilers unless we ask for a hint, because we got desperate. And so for a while, it was because we were bringing in different authors, some of them would be oh, this is pretty cool. And then they would hang out with us for a while until, other things came up. But that was one way.
I hope that others will also answer this, but would you specify the mechanism by which somebody might try to join?
Oh, the instruction, if you Google ClubFloyd, the very top part of that, there's a big explanation on like ifMUD for beginners, where we meet, when we meet, all of that's there. And if you can't find what you need, just email me. Yeah.
What I more meant was, how do people find ClubFloyd in the first place? Like, what makes them think, oh, I should follow these instructions and get into this thing?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, we, for a while, it was because we were inviting authors. We would say, oh, we're going to play your game. And they go, oh. And then they'd come to join. So it was sort of like we were offering free candy to the kids to get into our band, and they would come. But also social media. I don't know how well that would work these days. It's interesting that you've dropped off. I'm curious if other people in the group are still like advertising and such through social media, getting new people that way.
We definitely aren't, because I avoid social media, like, insofar as I can. Honestly, when we get new people in, I think it's mostly down to two things. One is word of mouth, like, because we get speakers in, so like speakers will often bring their own audience in a sense. So like they will project on social media or something like that, or like we have a lot of people signed up to the meetup. So like when we put up a new meetup, which is less frequently than a lot of the other groups here, often that will kind of go via word of mouth. Like people will share that message amongst them, even if they're not necessarily going to come. The other thing that, like, for some new members, we do, because we partner up with universities, the universities will often project it to their students. And so frequently we'll get, like, not a lot of people will come and keep coming, but occasionally we'll get, like, students who come for the first time because it's in their university and we're talking about something interesting and probably their teacher hassled them into doing it or something. But then they'll just kind of come along in the future as well. So those are our kind of main mechanisms, which are really small, but it sometimes works.
I would say, we're kind of the same thing and word of mouth, but when people just finding it like I did, I just Googled around, and I don't know if anybody had mentioned it at the NarraScope I attended. It's possible that's how I found it. I know I saw Andrew doing lots of things since it's, was his thing. But I was going to say that the right people that are going to be interested in what we do seem to find us, because we do keep getting new members, and sometimes people sign up and they don't come to the meet. I'd like it if more people come to the meet that sign up. But we keep getting new people that come and they talk about what they do, and it's like, yep, that's, and then that's exactly, they've found what they're looking for. So it seems to work okay. And then, we're here, right? This is a way for all of us to maybe get new people.
Yeah, I can talk about for the Seattle group. I have to preface this by saying I have no.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I've been to the London.
Sorry, go ahead, Jack.
Well, I was just going to say, I've been to the Seattle meetup. I've been to the Boston meetup. I've been to the London meetup. And you were talking about IF tourism. I hadn't really thought about it, but like I'm still in the London meetup group on Meetup, and I see the cool stuff you guys are doing, and I'm like, oh, wish I could go. I didn't realize until just today that like some of you would be cool with us dropping in from far away. And so I have a feeling all of these meetups may be getting new people soon.
Mm-hmm. I guess that brings up, the question I want to ask is what makes the London meetup London? What makes the Seattle meetup Seattle? Because the Boston meetup, it could function perfectly well with 0 Boston people. Why don't we just rename it like the Tuesday meetup? I don't feel like we ought to do that, but what's our argument for not doing that?
For me, it's time zone.
Time zones.
There. But we have someone coming. We have a regular from the UK. We have, for a while.
Several.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like there's these time zone stripes. I'm noticing that for each group, where it's like there's some, there's some kind of echoes out where it's sort of like they'll get people who are night owls from the UK and people who actually want to do this during the day from the West Coast, right? And that's like a sweet spot for East Coast meetup. But it's probably different for each time zone.
Maybe that means we should go on the Eastern time zone. Yeah, it's ours.
I think we kind of. I think if you actually look at who comes, that's sort of true. It is kind of up and down the coast a little bit, but I think that the types of discussions, right, or the types of games probably differ. We talk a lot. I think it's probably a very Boston thing. And now I'll shut up.
Well, a question I had that plays into this is the London group. You all are pretty prolific in bringing in outside speakers and people who are not, they're like maybe IF adjacent or not even IF adjacent, just like game folks or tech folks. And so the question I had, but it also plays into what makes the London, I would argue that's part of what makes the London meetup. Like they are very well organized and they, bring in speakers. How do you organize that? How do you make the invites? That was my question.
Do you want to take this one, Flo? Like, I feel like...
Sure. So some of it is just being people who are in the games industry. We know other writers, designers. When we see someone that's doing something interesting, like a lot of the time, if people have things they want to see, they're welcome to tell us what they're interested in. But other times, the three of us who organize this are like, I kind of want to see this. Let's see if they would be willing to come speak. All our meetups are free and the speakers are paid. So that can be a little difficult. We do believe in both those things very strongly. But yeah, when we can manage to make this stuff work together, again, in ways such as getting the university to provide the venue, for example, then yeah, we do want to kind of bring people in who are adjacent to IF, but interesting to an IF group. And that honestly covers a lot of narrative games in general. And we want people to understand the tools better and things like that. So it is important to us, and I think that's why it continues to be part of the kind of London meetup identity.
Thanks.
Now we're coming on. We have 5 more minutes to stay on time with this, and so we could take a question or two. Now, but I wanted one more round with this crew. From the people on the panel with a burning question you have, maybe a really specific, strange one for another group. That would be really fun. But the only way that we can do audience questions, because we're huddled around a phone in another room that's on its side and don't even have a keyboard, we can't hear the people in the room watching this at NarraScope. Okay. So we want to encourage people in that room and online to put their questions in the chat in Discord, and because we can now feed them. So are there any last panel-driven burning questions before we take a couple from this list? And the answer could be no. Yeah, honestly, I was really excited that Dan asked the question he did about people joining, because that was going to be my next question. And so we managed to get all the things I was hoping to structurally. There's obviously a lot of room to do even more. So we're going to go to these questions online. Okay, so
Wait,
Doug is typing
I have one quick question for everybody.
Oh, great.
Would you want to collaborate in the future to do together meetups?
But yeah, that'd be fun.
Definitely.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. So then the supergroup could really be a supergroup, which is like a kind of a fun idea, just convenient to get you all together to share with the group. But wouldn't it be interesting to see what these communities would do together?
So how do we encourage more meetups to be created? Is a question from Doug. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, I can start with this one. I'll tell you, Doug, no one can stop you. Start a group. You can do it. It'll only take a little bit of your time, organizational skills, and maybe a touch of your sanity, but you can do it.
Well, it just as a note that I've been observing from talking to a lot of people who are entering into this narrative games, interactive fiction space, who were not already very seated in this for a very long time, because there are new folks that are coming in who just aren't part of that institutional history, if you will. they are forming groups and they are loving it as like craving a kind of artisanal creativity that they also experience in like board game groups in a different way. So there are probably a lot of really interesting things being formed right now that I don't happen to know about. I knew about these because they've been around for so long, and so many, so much creative work and observation of creative work has come out of it. Yeah, we've got one minute left. Okay, does anybody want? Yeah.
We have Josh typing.
Yeah.
Hurry, Josh, we only have a minute. Type fast.
Yeah, and you kind of have Josh to blame for this panel because I just kept following around to all these great meetups. Yeah.
Oh, the Neo Interactives Discord group that runs lots of jams. Absolutely. It's sort of like a big asynchronous meetup for sure.
Great. Okay, so we should wrap there so that we're right on time. And I just want to take a moment. People in that room, whoever is on the other side of that wall, please congratulate all these wonderful panelists who came to NarraScope to share with you. And thank you very much for coming.